Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time Show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marissa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. On the Doin' Time Show today, we're going to be speaking first up with Megan Cracker and Jerry from the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Project. And we'll be speaking to them about a lawsuit taking on the Western Australian State Government for treatment of Aboriginal children at the Banksia Hill Juvenile Detention Centre. And we'll be speaking quite a lot about that and also paying tribute to a young man who was 15 years old and died as a result of excessive violence and being beaten by another young white man. And we'll be speaking about that later on, and a warning that this will contain images and more images of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that have died. And then after that, we'll be speaking with Brett Collins from Justice Action, and we'll be speaking with him about music in prisons. And basically there's a book that's just come out, and it's called Listening to Incarcerated Voices by Mary L. Cohen and Stuart P. Duncan. And we'll be speaking a lot about the incarceration machine and looking at the fact that music making in prisons looks at the role that it can play, and these authors actually argue that there's a very important role in achieving goals of accountability and healing that challenge the widespread assumption that prisons and punishment keep societies safe. And that's just a little bit of a brief summary. And so this show is actually going to be having some really, really sensitive information today, so look after yourselves and take care of each other. And so we'll be speaking very shortly now with Megan and Jerry.
You're listening to 3CR 855 AM, the voice of the community.
3CR Community Radio, giving the voice to the community since 1976.
And I'm going to be bringing an interview to listeners from Megan Cracker, who's from the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Project, and also with Jerry as well, who I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, both of them actually, from the same project. And we're going to be speaking about quite a few things actually, but one of them being the mistreatment of youth in detention at the notorious Banksia Detention Centre in WA, and I'm sure that Jerry and Auntie Megan will tell me the proper terminology about all this. So I'm just going to make a formal introduction, but before I do that, I also wanted to pay tribute as well to the young 15-year-old boy, Aboriginal boy, that died recently, I believe, in custody in WA, and I was going to talk a little bit about that as well. Megan and Jerry, I wanted to truly welcome and honour you and welcome you to the Doin' Time Show.
Thank you for having us on. Let me correct something for your listeners. The young boy who was 15 years old who died didn't die in custody. He did nothing wrong. He wasn't incarcerated.
No, of course not. And I want to talk about that. I believe he was beaten. Yes.
It was vigilantism. It was racial profiling, and even though it was vigilantism and racial profiling, it was mistaken identity. He was an innocent soul who was on his way home from school, and his life was lost because of racial profiling.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, yeah, this show does not just concentrate on deaths in custody anyway, and racial profiling is definitely relevant to, and very, very, we need to talk about systemic racism. Jerry, thanks so much for that correction. Now, can you introduce yourself, Auntie Megan, first of all, and tell us what land you're from and what project?
No worries, my darling, and so happy to be with you again.
It's
You're
lovely.
an absolute superstar, so thank you very much for this.
It's good to have you.
And so we're the National Suicide Prevention Trauma Recovery Project, but where I come from is about 4 hours out of Perth. It's a place called Mount Barker, kind of like if you blink and miss it, that type of thing, but you know, we've got good chickens down there, good wines, good grapes, all of it. So we're very lucky and blessed in that beautiful country. Come from a family of 13 brothers and sisters, really quite strongly connected. So family all over the place, here in Perth, out in Albany, a couple of brothers that live over in Melbourne. So very, very blessed. But Noongar country is where I come from, and Waggle Kep specifically.
Thank you so much, Auntie. Much appreciated. And Jerry, what about you? Can you just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Jerry Georgiadis, and I've lived in Western Australia for a quarter of a century. Before that, I spent 10 years effectively travelling the world, global travel that opened up my eyes more so than the 3 waves of education over 3 decades that I had. And prior to my global travels, which were from the mid-80s to the mid-90s and then a quarter of a century in WA, I'm from the eastern seaboard. So I was born in Sydney, and I'm a migrant Greek parents. My father's passed away. My mum was 85. And, I grew up in the western suburbs. And I've spent my whole life social justice informed. So whatever I've done, whether in the tertiary sector, whether in health and welfare, in suicide prevention, in restorative works, in the carceral system, I've always worked for the marginalised below the poverty line. And I'm part of the National Suicide Prevention Trauma Recovery Project, a near all volunteer effort that we're trying to get funded. I stepped down from the National Indigenous Critical Response Service, Commonwealth Task Force and Suicide Postvention in Loss and Grief that I got funded and set up, and then stepped down after 2.5 years so I could be succeeded by a First Nations person to make it an all First Nation service. And Megan worked with me there for 2 years before following me across the National Suicide Prevention Recovery Project. Megan and I met while she was working on the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse Institutional Responses. She went to 27 prisons to take out the stories over 2.5 years through No More Legal that was set up to do that, and to 30 communities. And I met her in one of those communities in the remote about 7 years ago. There's a story in that in itself, but for another time, and Megan and I have been colleagues ever since.
A good story, huh?
Yeah, funny story, I'll tell you. I'll have to tell you offline.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But a lot of love and respect there, you know, just a really strong relationship. And
I'm so happy.
I know Jerry and I, we've been through the trenches and we've fought some incredible battles with the families to get true justice.
Fantastic, fantastic. So before we move on to the horrific details of Banksia Hill, let's just do like a quick tribute. And in case listeners have just tuned in, I'm doing an interview with Megan and Jerry from the Suicide Prevention Project, and I'll do more detail later on about that. But just wanted to let you know the young 15-year-old boy did not die in custody, although there was racial profiling. Could one of you just, obviously we've got to be respectful of this, just let us know what happened to this young man. His family must be devastated.
Well, I'll let Megan speak to that because she's pivotal supporting the family.
Sure.
Well, Jerry, if you go first there and then I'll jump in after you.
Well, I was in Vietnam at the time, and I spent a couple of weeks away in Vietnam, and I learned of it while it happened there. I do know the mum. I've known her for 20 years. She's an incredible woman. I did see her on a Sunday morning first when I got back on the Saturday, and we spent 5 hours together at the house. And I did speak at a rally, and I have awesome respect for mum heart breaks for what she's gone through.
Yeah.
But Megan has been a huge support for this stalwart, steadfast mum who wants to bring people together, and the legacy of a child who had a great future ahead of him. And Megan should be the one to speak to
Sure.
young Cassie's
Sure.
life and Michelle's journey.
No, just Michelle is just a stalwart. She's the most amazing person. She's very kind. She's very loving. I mean, we met with Michelle. We've known each other for a while, but we came into contact properly, I guess, when we started working at Acacia Prison. Myself, Jerry, and Connie, and another lady who was a psychologist one day a week. But, you know, she always went over and above to help the fellas out in the prison. She was well loved and well respected, and just a beautiful human being. Just in relation to young Cassius, rest in peace, he was on his way home from school. He did have his school uniform on.
Yeah.
He was in the right place at the right time, and sadly this is what happened to him in terms of racial profiling, and he's no longer here. Rest in peace. So on the 13th, this is when the horrendous attack took place. He was in hospital. Whilst he was in hospital, he was walking, he was talking, he was playing his PlayStation. The police failed to take any statements whatsoever. When it first happened, there were some police officers and they took part of the statements, but then eventually he came home, and 8 hours later he went back to hospital, and he's no longer here today. But in terms of the police failures in that sense, part of the statement was taken, but they did not bother to check on him or the mum during their first initial stay in the hospital, so the statement was not completed. So that's a real fail in itself. In terms of Michelle, she's just a wonderful person, but we started, myself and Jerry, we went down to Michelle's house, and we did spend the 5 hours, and we were working on this big rally and protests and vigils right across the country. And it was just really beautiful in terms of the overwhelming support. And Michelle will tell you herself how much support that she received, and she was really quite humbled and surprised by it, if I can be honest. But we ended up having about 50 rallies right across the country, protests, vigils, and it was just really beautiful because it was about the healing and the collaboration and the respect, and people from all walks of life, from remote communities, the smaller towns, the larger towns, the cities, they all wanted to do something to show their homage and respect. And I guess it actually brought a lot of people together in terms of the healing process. But one of the amazing things is that there were some non-Indigenous people, and they wanted to hold some rallies and vigils and protests as well. We never said no. It was just incredible in that sense. But the sad thing about it is that he's no longer here, rest in peace, through no fault of his own, through being a normal little schoolboy that just was going home. One of the stories that I'll just say quite quickly, he was an honourable young person. He was someone that was so well respected. He loved his elders, he loved his community, and not one person has said a bad word about him because of his enthusiasm and his kindness and his approach and energy to life. Michelle tells the story of when he was 12 years old, where he said, when can I get a job? And she said, I think you might have to be about 15 years old. Anyway, at the age of 13, he grabbed a family lawnmower, went down the street, mowed a couple of people's lawns, came back to the house. And he said to Mum, do you think there's anyone else wants their lawn mowed? And she said, well, what are you going to ask? So next minute off he went. It was getting dark, and she hadn't heard from him, didn't know how to contact him because he didn't have his phone with him. Eventually he comes back home, and Michelle said, where have you been? I've been worried about you. He says, well, I've just mowed 15 lawns and 5 people want us to come back.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, later on that night he said to Michelle, do you think I'm going to have to pay tax? You know, at this ripe, beautiful, tender age of 13, he was, thinking like a little businessman. And he, sadly, is a huge loss to his family because they are close-knit. But he's also a huge loss to our community because of his approach to life and how he actually conducted himself, and it was really, really sad. The funeral, there was 500 people that attended. There was just so much love and solidarity and respect, and it was incredibly sad. And I was really quite humbled to, go to the funeral, but there was nothing but sadness in my heart because it's something that should not have happened.
It should not have happened, and I suppose we've got to be careful about contempt of court, don't we? Because I think the case, it's still open, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we've got to be careful, but definitely racial profiling there.
What can be said is that the 21-year-old man, as this has been identified in the media and it's public knowledge, has been charged with murder.
Yeah, it's pretty. And for cultural reasons, has the family given permission to release his name or not?
Yes, they've been really quite strong on using his name from when it first happened.
Okay, and what is his name, Megan?
His name is Cassius.
Cassius. I'm so glad that we're able to pay tribute, because this show actually does pay tribute a lot to people that have, First Nations people that have died, and all deaths, not just deaths in custody, like even racial. We've covered a lot of stuff about racial profiling as well. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to pay tribute to him today.
It was it could have went either way right across the country. People are angry.
Of course. People
are really angry. They talked about the vigilante groups. They talked about the racial profiling, and they were really angry that this could happen.
Absolutely.
So the way that Michelle conducted herself in the media, she wanted the calm, she wanted the love, she wanted the respect, and what one of her key messages was, violence feeds violence. So full respect to how she actually toned it right across the country in the first case, because this was something that could have got well and truly out of control.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Megan. I'm glad we've got enough time, because there's so much to talk about. Now, moving on now to Banksia Hill Nightmare, which highlights urgent need for prison reform and even prison abolition. I was wondering if you two could speak to it and talk about Banksia, Four Corners, the Four Corners show, and also perhaps give us an update of just background and update of what's happening with the class action.
Well, the class action is being led by Levitt and Robinson. I helped galvanise the class action because of what I saw in Banksia. And in 2020, when Megan and I were actually in Banksia for 8 weeks, we were commissioned during the worst of the pandemic, when they quarantined the state in March of 2020. They had quarantined all residents and all non-essential workers to their homes, and only essential workers could go to work. And what happened was all the outreach services and a lot of the non-essential in-reach services and internal services at Banksia had pulled the pin, so they had their lowest staffing levels ever recorded. And on the day of that happening, Megan, myself, and National Suicide Prevention Trauma Recovery Project, Connie, my daughter, were asked and summoned to Banksia. Megan and I went. And we started straight away. They just asked us to start straight away. We've been trying to get into restorative work. But when there was a needs-basis, triage-based approach, when they wanted to actually keep incidences down in that holding pen, that corral of human misery, they commissioned us to come in, and we said yes. So we actually de-escalated to summarise, we de-escalated every potential crisis, every potential incident that came across us 100% of the time. And that's what they wanted. And we did that while the staffing levels were their lowest. So all this stuff that gets said today about what constitutes and comprises incidences and what the stresses and the triggers are and how they're handled.
Absolutely, Jerry. Sorry, Jerry, can I just stop you there? Sorry to interrupt. Can you just kind of put your, speak up just a little bit?
Oh, yes.
Excellent, yes. Thank you. Go on.
Part of my problem is I've got Parkinson's, and I don't, part of my audibility.
Oh, no, listen, it doesn't show at all, really. It's environmental, Dale. Don't worry about it, Jerry. It's nothing to do with that. It's just because you've been merged, and you speak beautifully, actually, to be honest. It's more that because you've merged and you're the second caller, we just needed you to speak up a bit more, so don't worry.
So in the end, in the 8 weeks while we were there, I took the opportunity the next morning to tell Connie, who works on the outside doing all the support stuff, support letters, housing security, interim accommodation, Medicare, identity cards and the like, and connection to settling payments and so forth for the older kids that were coming out. I said, let's do restorative work. Let's do the transformational stuff that they've never experienced before, the stuff that we do, the stuff that we did in Acacia Prison, the largest prison in Western Australia, where we reduced suicidality to its lowest level ever and the lowest self-harms ever recorded in those 9 months, while Megan, Connie and myself were present in those 9 months. And we did the restorative work, changed young people's lives. We focused in on the girls because we knew we didn't have enough time. We knew once the quarantine was over, they'd pull us out and things would return to norm, a holding pen, a corral of human misery. And it's no more than that, because 70% of the children go on to adult incarceration. That's a fail. And a huge fail at that. That's a systemic issue. Black, brown and white children, all 70% go to adult incarceration, and significant stretches of that.
Absolutely.
So, the day we went in late March, there were 18 girls, aged 11 to 18 in the prison, in one compound called Yida. The last day we were in and out, we had more than upped it to 7. And that was remarkable, because it was only 8 weeks to turn around, and we supported them post-release unfunded when we were stitched for funding when they didn't need us anymore. We completed their bails, and some of them completed parole for the first time, and met their conditions on bail. And every child I applied for to the Children's Court, no matter how serious their offending or allegations were released into our care. Provided substantive care plans and demonstrated the way of what they should look like, safety nets and all that sort of stuff, and the intense psychosocial support that Megan and I put in. So we reduced the prison population of females from 18 to 7, and we changed lives. We got kids into education, into employment, into housing security. We didn't give up on them. We believed on them until they believed in themselves. And some of them had nowhere to go. They had the weakest safety nets, no safety nets at all. Some of them transients, no parents, or parents in jail.
Yeah. That sounds really amazing, Jerry, but let's put it in context. So what you're saying basically is that your the class action has organised programs, is that right?
No, what I'm saying is that even basic rudimentary services were not in the prison.
Oh.
Facilitating transformation just does not exist. They have the
I see what you're saying.
And it's an empty shell. And it's not just the things that we saw in there, the abhorrence of degradation, of denigration.
Now I get it.
Racism, classism, slagging, excessive force, and deprivation of liberty and solitary confinement. It's also the things we didn't see. We didn't see the educational activity of a good transferable.
You didn't see. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So because we were going to be funded to do more, and we were in the procurement process and we were actually already assured a certain level of funding. We couldn't betray all the others that would fall by the wayside. So we had to compel social reform. Government wasn't listening. In part, I believe they don't care. In part, I believe people, when they become politicians, have forked tongues and change and public. Anyway, I won't go down that path. I launched the class action because I've launched a lot of legal actions over the years, and to right wrongs. I launched the collective action, the class action, and it's now got 600 testimonies, the majority of them collected by Megan, myself, and Connie and Felicia. Megan's daughter, Connie's my daughter. And,
absolutely. It's
that
important.
That class action is what has shone the light. That class action is pulled all the levers. That class action is what has got everybody to stand out, and even those who have come in late, at least have joined the wagon train once it got through the battlefields, the landmines that we walked and dodged and fought, and we've got targets on our backs heavily. We've had been blocked. Megan and I have been blocked working in the prison, not just Banksia Hill, but also the adult prison.
The adult prison as well. Yeah.
And it's not the Department of Corrective Services, and it's not the Department of Justice that's actually blocked us, which actually overarch. They've actually told us themselves it's the government. The government is upset that you're suing the government. And I don't know why they've taken it personally, because this is about children being betrayed.
That's exactly right.
Class action has been believer, and without the class action, all these voices and the multitude of voices that have come out, and the people who on their watch did nothing but have come out of late, they wouldn't have come out.
Has it finished, Jerry?
No.
Is it still going?
Me's working on the class action. I'll let her take over and talk.
Yeah, go on, Auntie.
And these are my baby, big crybabies. That's what they are, big crybabies. It's a government that is leading by tyranny and dictatorship, and Jerry is absolutely right. we did go into Banksia Hill. We did take it from 18 down to 7, and none of those kids come back into Banksia Hill. So there is a way forward. The government has basically said there's no way forward, and as a result, on the 20th of July, they transferred 17 kids over to Unit 18 into Casuarina Prison, which is a maximum security prison. So there was no justifiability for that. So in terms of where it is at this point, is that there's still children in Banksia. There's still children at Unit 18. The class action, that was a turning point because the incarceration has been unabated for decades. And we had to stand up and say, no, sorry, this is not good enough. We do know it's a poverty narrative. We do know that 60 or 70% go into adult prisons. We need to abate the crisis. So Jerry and I and the families, we were in the trenches and we were fighting hard. We had 3 rolling lockdowns. One at Banksia Hill, the next one at Minister Johnson's office, who's the Minister of Corrective Services in Western Australia, and then we went to the office, one after the next after the next. Jerry was just absolutely incredible in terms of media, week in, week out, week in, week out. The children that had been in Banksia Hill, bearing in mind that there's been 10,000 since it opened in 1997, they also spoke, and they spoke about their experiences, and they were able to rebut the myths that the government puts out so smoothly that everything was running beautifully. Well, the 600 testimonies with Levitt Robinson says otherwise. It talks about the harshness. It talks about the violations of human rights. It talks about how kids were slammed to the ground there. And then you've seen in the Four Corners story, one of the young boys, the actual evidence about the treatment that he sustained while there. That's the manic of many. The folding up technique is something that we've heard time and time and time again. Our experience in Banksia Hill, people told us about it. Our experience up in Acacia Prison, the largest prison in Western Australia, told us about it as well in terms of the people. We had to bring it to the fore. Jerry was instrumental in bringing it to the fore by approaching Levitt Robinson, who the Palm Island lawyers are, who won the $30 million against the state of Queensland as a result of the death of Mr. Dumaji, rest in peace, and they are the class action lawyers. Now, there's 2 actions right now. The first one is just in relation to an injunction about Unit 18. So that's in the courts right now. The second one, which is a one with a class action with all the mob on it, that's had to go through the Australian Human Rights Commission and waiting for termination of that complaint. Once that's terminated, then that'll go into the federal court. It's basically a procedural step. The government have been really quite woeful. We do know that 40% of people, Aboriginal people, fall below the poverty line. We do know that 60% in Western Australia fall below the poverty line. We do know that 1 in 12 Aboriginal men are in prison today. The crisis had to be abated, so full credit to Jerry for making this happen. And as a result, the government yesterday offered, $63 million into Banksia Hill Unit 18. And Jerry can unpack that.
You there, Jerry? Oh.
Hey, Jerry.
That's okay. That's okay. We've got a lot of...
So the government yesterday, there's been relentless pressure as a result of the Four Corners, the young boy, the folding up technique. It's a technique that's been used for a long time, and basically it can lead to death. It's excruciating painful. There's been allegations of shoulders that have been dislocated as a result of the excessive force that's been used.
Yep.
And it's a really painful and psychologically damaging experience for a lot of these young ones to have and be subjected to. So there's been relentless media, left, right and centre over here in WA, and, to some degree nationally as a result of the Four Corners story, which is amazing in that sense. But the McGowan government yesterday came out and said, here you go, here's $63 million. That'll make the problem go away. Well, the $63 million, the majority of it is spent on bricks and mortar. That's in terms of the repairs. The second part of it is about recruitment of more staff. Well, that's going to be more prison officers or guards. And even the recruitment processes over here in relation to getting Aboriginal people to become guards is really quite strict and quite onerous. And there's a 6-stage process that the person has to go through to become a guard. A lot of our people at any one of those stages can fall out at the psychological testing. And then the third part to the funding is, therapeutic programs, but that's very much the same services doing the same thing.
That's right.
Maybe there'll be a few more dollars into it. So to me,
that's whitewashing.
The government is it's whitewashing. It doesn't go to the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is the poverty narrative. A lot of these young ones, when they come from Banksia Hill, they're going out to very limited safety nets, if I can be honest, and sometimes very weak safety nets. Let's not forget the other cousins there, and that cousin is Department of Child Protection. 40% of those children are in the Department of Child Protection. And there's been stories, and I know a lot of these families, where their child has actually self-harmed, been taken to hospital, and they are the last to find out about it.
That's exactly right. The child protection system, stolen generation, there's so many things. Well, Auntie Megan, we've actually broken a record here. We had a really long extended interview, and I've got to go on to my next one soon. Are there any final comments you wanted to make before we finish?
Look, 132 castle estates right across the country. 17 of those are youth detention centres. We need to abate the crisis right across the country. What we've done in Western Australia is we do have the Banksia Hill class action. The crisis has been unabated for decades. There needs to be more class actions right across the country in the absence of political will. Otherwise, it's going to lead to more death, more hurt, more pain, and further violations of human rights right across the country. So we need to really show that strength, that courage, and let it come from the ground up. It's the voices of the people that will make the difference.
Megan, thank you so much, and thank you so much, Jerry, too, wherever you are.
No worries, my darling. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You were both amazing. Thanks, Auntie Megan, and we'll talk very soon.
Hope so. See you, my darling. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Hi, we're the Marindas, and you're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM.
Join us for the 2022 edition of The Change, Definitions of Freedom, interactive theatre, 7 to 9 p.m. on the 16th of December at the Honda Showrooms, Hoddle Street. We're also having an exhibition and preview from 5 p.m. Thursday, 24th of November at the Store, Abbotsford Convent. Find out more on Facebook at The Change Definitions of Freedom. The Change is presented by United Struggle Project, a 3CR supporter.
And that was Megan Cracker and Jerry from the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Project. And we were talking about a number of issues, including Banksia and also paying tribute to a young man that died as a result of racial profiling. So pretty soon, well, actually quite shortly, we'll be speaking with Brett Collins from Justice Action. Wilfrid Laurier University Press is pleased to announce the release of Music Making in US Prisons, Listening to Incarcerated Voices by Mary L. Cohen and Stuart P. Duncan. The US incarceration machine imprisons more people than in any other country. Music Making in US Prisons looks at the role music making can play in achieving goals of accountability and healing that challenge the widespread assumption that prisons and punishment keep societies safe. So we're going to be speaking with Brett about this amazing book very soon, and we were speaking off air this morning actually about the goodness that music can give to prisons and how that can happen. Hello, Brett. Welcome to the program.
Yes. Hello, Marissa.
Great to have you. Now, Brett.
Always good to speak to you.
Absolutely. And we're getting towards the end of the year again. But can you just talk to us about the book and tell us, the role that music can play, and can that happen in Australia as well? Can you just give us a bit of background?
Look, music is an enormously important area of art. It's an area. It's effectively the only way in which some people can express themselves. In fact, there's no known culture that doesn't have music. Music is actually very much of a community, an individual, a personal expression, and it develops things like a sense of closeness, belonging with others, and a whole range of things. But the research has shown that if you're engaging in some sort of performance or creation of music, affect you physiologically, psychologically, emotionally. A whole range of things are seen as being in goods. In fact, there's an ancient philosopher, Plato, who actually he said that music was a more potent instrument for transformation than any other. So there you go. So music is special, and music in prisons is the researcher said that it creates a safer environment. People are happy with one another. It's certainly amazing the effect it has.
So how did you get to hear about this project, and can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Look, we had Alexis Kallio, who's actually a University of a group of. She's the deputy director of the Conservative on Music up there in Queensland, and so she came to visit us because she was speaking she was a keynote speaker in a conference. She came down to talk with us, and we went, "Whoa, look at this!" And the more we looked at what she was doing, the more we felt that we had to get this out and make it part of the Computers in Cells project, because that's a very natural way in which people can do things in their cell and make use of this technology that's coming into prisons throughout Australia.
Absolutely. So how do we link that up to the US? I mean, is that a program that's happening already there?
Yes, I suppose so. Look, this is a universal right. I mean, quite honestly, the United Nations actually make a point of saying that this is a uniquely human expression in social activity. So this is not only just a US intervention or a suggestion. In fact, there is this United Nations support for music rights. And there are 5 music rights they actually lay down. They say, well, one is the right to express themselves musically in all freedom. 2 is to learn musical languages and skills. And the 3rd thing is to have access to musical involvement through the participation, listening creation and information. And then to develop artistry and communicate through all media with proper facilities at their disposal. And the last thing is to obtain just recognition and fair remuneration for their work. So they're music rights. But the benefits are so wide. I mean, when I read the story of the Lullaby Project, where women were able to sing lullabies to their children from inside jail, and were able to make a connection that otherwise they wouldn't make. So that's before you actually start to talk. You have a chance to just sing, and so the Lullaby Project it brought tears to my eyes when I read about it. I thought, yes, I know the importance of a parent being able to sing to their child, and it's certainly at the early stages. That's
really amazing. That's great, because I mean, a lot of the time, prison's about locking up the poor, isn't it? And you've got a lot of women of all races and abilities who are locked up and are separated from their children. So to do that would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing about it is, though, in some ways, this is the biggest seller for corrective services all around Australia, and that is that the statistics of people who have been engaged in music, the stats show that it reduces recidivism by 60%. 60%. So this is a real a game changer where you're able to have, instead of being reduced to not having an instrument in your cell. They might say, oh, you can't have a guitar because it's too noisy for other people. You use the strings to strangle somebody or whatever they want to say. The nice thing about this is that it can be done on a compact a tablet, a computer tablet in your cell, and you can have an external teacher teaching you how to create and present music, and then you can write songs, and you can express yourself in those sorts of ways just from in your cell. And that's right. Such a game changer. So important.
So this is sorry, Brett. Can you let's put this in context? So with the book, then, so there's been a book written, but it's not actually happening yet, is it? The instruments are not allowed yet in prisons, is it?
No. Look, music has always been a part of a prison area. I mean, I can remember way back 30 years ago, we had groups of people singing together and out in the yards in the compounds. So that's music has always been a part of.
But just not they're out in the cells, obviously.
That's right. Well, that's right. Although, you know, people have also their musical instrument in their cell, they can actually sing.
Right.
Still do that now. But this is different. We're now talking about a teacher working on the tablet.
Yep.
Whack out in the community, and then allocating some time to prisoners inside their cells using the tablet and teaching them how to then create music for the first time. So we've actually isolated two particular programs, apps, which go onto the tablets, and one's called Sound Lab, and another one's called Sound Trap and Band Lab, and both of them are actually really inexpensive, and would make it just such a difference. So we're actually in the process now of negotiating, in fact, with all corrective services right around Australia, and we've had people like from Queensland, from South Australia, from Tasmania, the top people inside corrective services have said, this is wonderful, yes, we need to do this, so you're right in behind us. So there you are. So certainly it's one of these good news stories, but has yet to be played out in every state and territory. And I suspect that Victoria might be a little bit behind some of the other jurisdictions.
Yeah, Victoria's got a very, very high incarceration rates, not just of Indigenous prisoners, but also in the child protection system as well.
Well, absolutely, and the nice thing about this is that it is particularly valid for younger people. For younger people, the chance to actually learn to get used to rhythms, or for example, what they call listening to country for the Aboriginal youth to be able to express themselves, and then they start to see themselves in ways that are more with their community and part of their culture, rather than seeing themselves as being naughty boys and girls, criminals, that sort of thing. They can express themselves and develop an expression, which is something that other people can appreciate, and they can lift their own view of themselves.
Okay, so this is actually quite far-reaching. So hopefully we can negotiate to have those teachers in there very soon.
Oh, look, absolutely. Well, in fact, we've been speaking to all states and territories, and we have a very carefully prepared presentation which identifies the sorts of programs which are safe. There's no question about being able to divert messages away from the teacher that can directly deal only with the teacher or with other students outside as well. And so those are now able to be done right now. So it comes down to ensuring that each of the jurisdictions does open up the opportunities to people in prison. So a lot of pressure being applied at the moment. A lot of states and territories are very concerned about the number of people who are returning to prison after going to jail. So if we are able to put forward some proposals like these, which mean that corrective services can see there's a way in which they can reduce recidivism and get people ready for release and survive outside, then it's very hard for them to refuse.
For sure. Now, how do we get hold of the book, Brett?
Well, the book itself, the book is probably available through Amazon, but what we have some papers about music in prison. So there's the original paper that was actually prepared by the Griffith University, Alexis Callio, and then we've extended that with another document, about a 25-page document. It's called Music in Prisons. It's actually on our website. So if anyone listening who wants to have a family member download it from our website, it's all there. And we encourage people to push their commissioners, push their governments, whoever whichever jurisdiction they're in. This is unable to be rejected offer. Right? This is such a wonderful opportunity for people to develop skills and give them all these other benefits as well. It's very hard for any government to refuse it.
Can you just read out the Justice Action website, Brett?
Yes, okay, so it's www.justiceaction.org.au, and I think it's probably the third thing on the third panel on the website. It says Music in Prisons, and there's a lot of good information there, and then the two reports you can download from there as well.
And so the book is actually called, just to clarify, Listening to Incarcerated Voices by Mary L. Cohen and Stuart P. Duncan.
Yes, okay, an excellent book, and Alexis was the one who drew our attention to it, and she's a very enthusiastic, very well-connected woman in music and prisons.
And sending out a cheerio to Alexis there for bringing attention to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Brett, thank you so much for coming onto the program. I mean, have you got any final comments that you want to make?
There's so many projects in behind the computer tablets. It opens up a whole range of things. Music is one of them, but probably even more important is for some people who need some new ideas about how they can run their lives and find a bit of some suggestions for themselves. External counsellors will be available through the tablets as well. So instead of being fronted to the psychologist who's going to make a report about what you say to them and you shut up and say nothing, you'll have an external psychologist who can actually, or counsellor, could be a doctor, but these external people who are part of the mainstream services who will then be able to use the tablets. So tablets are extremely important. There are things like education that comes in through them as well. So instead of sitting in the slot and just wasting your time and watching TV and getting bored as hell, you have a chance to get up on your toes, find new stuff, and develop. And then when you get out, you've got things you can do and make money too. There you go.
Absolutely. Brett, thank you so much. You've been great, and I really appreciate you coming onto the program at such short notice.
Okay, Marissa, always a pleasure to talk with you.
Lovely.
Okay.
Keep up the good work. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM. Visit the 3CR website at 3cr.org.au/podcast to hear the most recent recording from each show, or 3cr.org.au/streaming to listen live.
So it's up to us, the people. We need a treaty in this country. We need the end to the war in this country. And the only way we can do that is through a peace treaty. Not the one you see in Victoria, not the one you see in Queensland, not the one you see in the Northern Territory, because they talk treaty and still lock our people up. They still kill our people. They still desecrate our land and our water. A treaty means peace. A treaty means equality, and a treaty means justice. Thank you.
You're listening to Radical Radio on 3CR, 855 on your AM dial, 3CR digital, and podcasting and streaming on 3cr.org.au.
Hi, I'm Robbie Thorpe. Crime Scene Australia, it's not just an ordinary comic. How would you describe this comic, Charlie?
It's a comic book for adults. We're taking Australian history, turning it on its head and making it real history. It's funny and it's dark, it's supernatural.
We're going to launch the comic.
Robbie and I will both be there from 6 o'clock. Carol Carpeney from Us Mob playing a bunch of songs. We do a bit of a smoking ceremony to bring everybody in. To all the listeners out there, if you're interested in coming along, it's Thursday, the 1st of December, 6 o'clock at Wolfhound Cafe on Brunswick Street for Crime Scene Australia. When you know your history, you know where you're coming from.
A 3CR supporter.
You are listening to 3CR Community Radio on digital and online 3CR Radical Radio.
Tune in to Rest is Survival, 3CR's International Day of People with Disability broadcast. On 3rd of December, 7am to 7pm, we're talking about the role of rest in the anti-capitalist revolution, with programming by multiply marginalised disabled people and disabled broadcasters from the 3CR community. Visit 3cr.org.au/Disability Day 2022.
And you just heard an interview with Brett Collins from Justice Action speaking about music in prisons and a new book that's just come out. And we're nearing the end of our show now, and wanted to thank all of our guests for contributing to the show, and also just reminding listeners that we're also paying tribute as well to a young Aboriginal man that died in WA. And so I wanted to actually say goodbye from Marissa. Stay tuned every Monday from 4 to 5 for the Doing Time show. And we're going to be going out pretty soon with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella from the Rumpy Band. And we'll see you next week. Thank you. Take care of each other. Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.